Hey everybody, welcome back to the Show and Tell show. We're here again with another episode 26, I believe. I can't believe we're this far. We're halfway through the year of doing these shows. That's amazing. Last week, we threw out the challenge to bring out a community recipe because we have so many cookbooks in our collection at Huronia Museum, not just like the official Midland Cookbook, which a lot of people know, but we have like from service clubs and special interest groups who put out cookbooks as fundraisers. So there's some neat recipes that have come out. And since we threw out the challenge, Genevieve, we're first. What have we got?
I brought home the 1911 edition of the Midland Cookbook, and this was compiled by the Women's Auxiliary at St. Margaret's Roman Catholic Church in order to raise funds for the new church that was going up. That's the church that's there currently. Before there was a smaller brick church on the site. So what I have done is taken a recipe for
Asparagus soup.
That was contributed by Mrs. 2 dozen asparagus soup, 2 dozen asparagus stalks, and a quarter of an onion, and boil in enough water to cover them. When tender, remove the onion. Well, I cheated a bit because we had asparagus for supper last night, so there was already cooked asparagus. But I did boil the onion, took it out, and drain asparagus and save the water. Cut the asparagus into small pieces, then pound it to a paste. And that's kind of what attracted me to this recipe, to pound it to a paste. I usually use an immersion blender when I use make a cream soup, but I thought I would see how long it took to pound asparagus into a paste. It took 45 minutes with a colander and a pestle, and it was still pretty stringy. I have to say I maybe lack the vigor of an early 20th century housewife. Then you put it back on the stove with some flour, 1 dessert spoon of butter. I didn't know what a dessert spoon was. I'm gauche. I only have 1 set of cutlery. So I guessed that too much butter, there's no such thing as that. So I just put a healthy amount of butter in the pan with a little pulverized sugar, and I did pulverize the sugar. I'm not sure to what end, but I did. Mix them until they're smooth, add the asparagus in the water it was boiled with, and then add 1 beaten egg and a cup of cream. And so that's what I did. I made it all this morning, put it back in the fridge, and every time my kids went into the fridge, they'd go, "Oh, what is that?" Thinking that perhaps it was for supper tonight. Anyway, this is what it looks like. Oh. This is cold. I didn't bother to heat it back up. It is kind of gross looking, but you know what? It tastes pretty good. The interesting thing is I noted that a lot of the recipes in this cookbook did not call for a lot of salt to be added. And so there's no salt in this. And it's really interesting when you can really, really taste the flavor of the asparagus. It's not the saltiness, I guess, of our food that hits you first. So that's what I made. Thumbs up. Thank you, Mrs. George Chu, for that delightful recipe. Although next time I think I will use the immersion blender because there are a lot of strings left.
Awesome, Genevieve.
Yeah, asparagus is very fibrous to try it.
Yeah. Pound into a paste.
Wow.
So there you go.
Stuff. And you ate it. Good for you.
It's delicious.
I bet it is. It sounds good. I might have to try that. Yeah. What have you got over there at Penetanguishene Centennial Museum? What recipe have you brought for us today?
Well, I think that Genevieve has put me to a little bit of shame because mine was not as labor intense as yours. We also have lots of old cookbooks in our collection. However, we chose to go with one that was a little newer. It's a support. It's like a fundraiser for the Metis, Georgian Bay Metis Women's Circle. So
delicious.
Yeah, this is a little fundraiser book for them. It's been out a few years, but I understand they do still have some copies, and perhaps if I give you the information on it, you might be able to include it with them.
Absolutely. Do you sell it in your gift store? I know we're not open right now, but are you selling it?
No, we bought it from a personal, it was a personal purchase. So yeah. So going through the book, there was so much to choose from. There's so many different recipes. They have desserts, there's soups, there's a section for like kind of like wildlife. There's elk, and there I came across one for squirrel pie.
Did you?
Well, I thought about it and I thought, you know what? They can outrun me by miles. I don't climb trees. So there's very little chance that I'm going to be making squirrel pie. So I went with instead, but I thought, you know what? If Dale was still here, he'd have me up that tree getting those darn. Yes, he would.
I knew Dale. Yep.
So instead, I chose to go with one of our sister soups, and I chose a harvest pumpkin soup.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. So, like I said, it was nowhere near as labor intense as yours, because this one, very conveniently, you use canned pumpkin. So there was no mashing, no hacking, no chopping, nothing like that. But it's good all the same. And here's, let me see. Can we get it? Oh, there it is.
Oh, beautiful looking. Yum.
Yeah. It's it's nice and thick, and it's really good. And being that it's in canned, you can have it any time of the year. You don't have to wait till the fall. So yeah, it's in this little book. And as I said, it's a fundraiser for the ladies. So we'll get the information out there for you. Absolutely. And perhaps you'd like to be, it's only $10. So it's a great little buy. Yeah.
Does it say who did that recipe in the book? Who donated that recipe?
No, they don't for any of their recipes.
Oh, okay.
They don't give an identifying person. But there's just such a variety in here. Some of them are newer types of recipes, but like I said, there's elk and there's bannock and things like that as well included. So there.
That's very, very cool. Yeah, make sure we send the information. We'll put them in our post. That way,
yes,
when we post
for
it, that way
sure.
people know where to get it. And maybe we'll actually just make take a photo or whatever, Jen, and post our asparagus soup too.
Yeah, sure.
Try pulverizing asparagus in the free time.
It's a good workout.
Can you imagine if these ladies saw our immersion blenders today?
Oh my goodness.
Or our food processors, which is like my number one tool in the kitchen. I use my food processor almost every day. Yeah, like we are so lucky.
Electric stoves where you can control the temperature of your either stove top or it's easier.
The oven,
easier
Yeah, my mom always cooked on a wood stove, and she was really good at moving the pot around. And I'm like, we have an electric stove. And she's like, no. And she just moved the pot around to the heat that she needed for whatever she was cooking. I mean, she burnt a lot of stuff, I'm going to be honest. But anyway.
Was that from neglect?
Stuff that's baked in the wood oven tastes so much different than an electric oven. Yeah,
I remember her making bannock in the oven. She made always a baked bannock. Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned squirrels, because you know how in social media, like depending on what you look at all the time, you get more information about. So on my Pinterest account, this showed up like last year, how to render squirrel fat for cookies.
Wow.
I know. And I'm like, what do you think I'm looking at, Pinterest?
Wow.
I bookmarked it because it was interesting.
This recipe was, like I said, for 4 squirrels. Like I wasn't even going to be able to catch one, let alone 4. But I don't know how many you'd possibly need to render the fat to collect. Like you'd need a whole passel of those little critters.
I'll send you the article, Jan. I saved it because it was just interesting.
Yeah.
And on a side note, I have eaten squirrel, but that's another story.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay. So what's our challenge next week? What are we doing?
So the challenge next week, sticking with, Emmy's Museum Month, I was interested to see what your favorite artifact is in your collection.
Oh.
One of your favorite ones. I know we can't have one, so just, but just one top 5. What's one of your top 5 favorite artifacts you have in your collection?
Okay. All right. We can do that. We can definitely do that because yeah. I mean, we all have least favorites because it's like, how do we move that? How do we take?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
guilty.
Yeah. And it's not that we hate the artifact. It's just, oh my God, it's so big. Anyway. All right. We'll see everybody again next week. Same time, same channel. Thanks for joining us.
Enjoy your
Bye.
afternoon outside.
I will
Bye.
be.
Bye.
Bye.